And now, it's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks again for joining me. Gosh, 13 years I've been on this program, helping you guys better understand the real estate market here in Charleston. So I like to take local, regional, national news, make sure that we understand how to apply that to us here in the Low Country so that if you're thinking of buying or selling or investing in real estate, maybe you have some properties that you'd like to turn into a rental property or acquire rental properties. Maybe you even want to sell real estate as a job. This is the show for you. This is where you become an informed consumer. So thanks again for joining me. This show is a special one because today we're talking about the state of the market. A lot of people have concerns and questions about where we are as a market right now. It's kind of tough to decipher. So I want to talk about that. But more importantly, we're going to use this as an opportunity to really discuss where we are right now and how that's going to help us determine where this market's going next year. And so that will be our next show. Really, our final show of the year will be our what's going to happen. You know, we're going to make some predictions. I will say that in the time that I have spent on this show, which is 13 years, selling real estate for almost 20. Next month, I'll have been selling real estate for 20 years, which is kind of crazy to say. But we're going to take all the past, shows. And if you go on YouTube or listen to our podcast or wherever we post our shows, which is basically everywhere, and you look at my predictions versus what happened, they're usually pretty spot on. And that's because I'm a real student of this market. I study it on a daily basis. And I've just lived it and breathed it for the past 2 decades. So for those that are thinking of maybe doing something in the housing market, you want to buy a house, sell a house, both, invest, I can give you guys a really clear understanding of what I think the market's going to look like next year and consult you on what to do to maximize your profits in that process. So if you'd like to reach out to me, listingsincharleston.com is our website, listingsincharleston.com. Or you can give me a call or text, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. So I was asking, we did our big business planning meeting this week on my real estate team, where we talk about the market in really specific detail. And we talk about, of course, our own plan and how we're going to not just survive, but thrive in this market upcoming. Because I think it's been a tough market for a lot of folks this year. It's not been it's not been my best year in sales, I can tell you that, in terms of just number of homes sold. But I think that we've done a really good job this year of consulting our clients because the market has been a little finicky. And so I've been asking recently, how would they describe the market in comparison to maybe just a few years ago? We have to remember that 2020, 2021 were pretty crazy markets in comparison. And so folks were saying things like, well, it was slow. Some said resilient, frustrating, confusing. And then for the folks that have been selling real estate for a while, like I have, 20 years, we just called it normal. We've not really seen what a normal market looks like for quite a while, before COVID. And so the questions that folks have are, why did home values go up when buyer demand went down? Aren't we supposed to be following the old supply and demand? You learn it in high school and it pretty much applies to everything. What happened? Why did the number of homes for sale stay so low? Why didn't interest rates go down more? Why hasn't affordability improved? All of these questions people have about the market right now, and it's created just an uneasy feeling as to the direction of the market. Now, we'll talk more about the direction of the market next show. This is really to help you guys understand why we are in the position that we're in right now. And I will tell you, just as a little bit of a foreshadowing here, there's no quick fix to this. There's no one singular thing that's going to turn this market on a dime in one direction or the other, barring some sort of crazy unforeseen circumstance. But what I guess I'm pointing toward is that there's no, magical policy or injection of something into this market that's at least planned that's going to completely shift things. This has been a market that's been 10 years in the making, right? We've been basically in a seller's market for a decade. So if you look at nationally, national numbers, I mean, this year it was it was sluggish at best. We are going to have about 3.8 million homes sold this year. That's well below the 5.25 million annual average we've seen over the past few decades. I mean, just 3 years ago, we've sold 6.5 million homes nationally. And these are existing home sales. We're not talking about new construction right now. We're just talking about folks that already own their home that decide to sell it. It feels slow because it is slow. But Loris Yoon, who's the National Association of Realtors chief economist, said that the worst of the downturn in home sales could be over, with increasing inventory leading to more transactions. Additional job gains and continued economic growth appear assured, resulting in growing housing demand. However, for first-time home buyers, mortgage financing is critically important. While mortgage rates remain elevated, they are expected to stabilize. So, here in Charleston, our local dynamics tell a little bit of a different story, a very nuanced story, I would say. If you look at just year-to-date numbers, we're kind of flat. If at the end of November, right, last month, we'd sold 16,030 homes. By November of last year, we had sold 16,032 homes. I've never really seen a stat get that close to being almost exact. So that the number of closings that we've had, which is an indication of demand, it was the same this year as it was last year. But the number of homes for sale at any given point in time continues to go up, right? We're looking at about 3,200, a little bit more existing homes available for sale right now versus the 2,400 we had this time last year, which is a 34% increase. And the actual number of homes for sale that hit, or of homes that hit the market, is actually down 1% from this same time last year. And so part of the reason for that is that homes are just taking longer to sell. And this is the power of statistics. This is why you have to kind of really understand the data behind the statistic, right? In other words, this is the power of how statistics can play at your emotions. If I were to say that the median days on market has gone up, it's taking 64% longer for you to sell your house, that sounds a lot more serious than saying, yeah, we went from 2 weeks to about 3.5 weeks. So we have to take some of these data points with a grain of salt here. We've not seen a massive shift in our market, but it has slowed down. It's not been a great past 3 months for our market. And, we had the election, we've had some bad weather, we've got the holidays. The timing's just not great. But sales continue to chug along. What's interesting, though, is that showings, the number of folks that are looking at properties, which is all trackable data, by the way, the number of folks that are looking at homes for sale, it's down by 16% compared to this time last year, year-to-date numbers. Just not as many people looking at real estate. Obviously, the same amount of folks buying real estate, but, we're seeing more homes hit the market, and they're staying on the market for longer. Yet somehow, the median sales price in Charleston went up by 4.5% for existing homes. It's adjusted from $400,000 this time last year to $417,500 as of last month. Well, why is that? How is that happening? Well, demand still outpaces supply in Charleston. And that's been the story for years now, right? Even though affordability or lack thereof has pushed some buyers, to the sidelines, others, I think, are very eager to enter the market and be in the market and sell and buy, just looking for the right opportunity, looking for the right property. And it's been hard to find. Inventory has gone up. Those options are starting to increase. But, the tail of the tape for the past several years has just been affordability. The National Association of Realtors Affordability Index hit a 40-year low this year. But, the desirability of Charleston as just a place to live has kept our market stable. I'm not saying it's affordable, but it is stable. Nationwide, affordability issues have priced about 103 million Americans out of buying a house. That's the statistic. And if you look at the affordability index, meaning, the amount of money they make in relation to how much money they or how much home they can afford based on that monthly payment. The National Affordability Index is 98, meaning the average income across the board is only 98% of what's necessary to afford the average priced home. Well, in Charleston, frankly, it's a lot worse. We're at 74. The median income here is only 74% of what's necessary to afford the median priced home in our market with a 20% down payment at today's rates, right? From January to July, affordability got worse this year. August through October, and last month was flat, but there was a nice little bump there. There was some play in interest rates, and there was some play in regard to negotiability among sellers. Starting in April, sellers have consistently received a lower percentage of their original asking price to the same time the year before. So right now, we're getting about 96% of our asking price versus basically 100%, just a few years ago. And so there's a lot going on in this market. We're going to continue this discussion about where we are, how we got there. So stick around. We got a lot more to talk about right here on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. But if you want to reach out to me, you want to come up with a plan, just have a conversation about what you think is going to kind of be in your world next year. You're thinking of buying, selling, investing. Let's have a conversation about it. 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. Prices, inventory, affordability. We talk a lot about the stats associated with our particular market, but we also talk a lot about the process. This show is designed to inform you so that when it comes time for you to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you are an informed consumer. We're joined this morning by Brian Wells of Coastal Creek Design, a familiar voice. And for those that watch the videos online on YouTube or TikTok or wherever they are, familiar face as well. But we're going to talk today about what happened this year, right? Next episode, we're going to talk about predictions for 2025. So definitely tune into that one as well. But in order to figure out where we're going, we need to understand where we are first. And so, a lot of folks have questions about where we are as a local market right now. Of course, there's national and even regional market-based concerns. But what's really interesting about, bringing Brian onto the program is that he gets to talk about it from a bit of a different perspective, right? These are folks that are not buying necessarily or selling real estate. These are folks that either own their own home that have decided to stay and make it work for them through an addition, renovation. Of course, we also talk a lot about new construction and that side of things, which is a breath of fresh air and something that we add to the show that you just have better perspective on than I do. So I want to say first and foremost, welcome. And good
thank
morning.
you.
So excited to chat with you about just kind of what you're seeing on your end with regard to the real estate market. And before we get into all the nitty-gritty details here, because we're going to go through a lot of, not just data points, but opinions here, shared experiences. But if at any point in time you want to reach out to us, you have some questions about the market, the process, you want to have a conversation with Brian, of course, you want to have a conversation with me. Brian, let's just start quickly with how do folks get in touch with you?
Yeah. So the name of my company is Coastal Creek Design, and we are a full firm with about 12 architects and 3 structural engineers. We only do residential design stuff. So we are doing about 70 to 80% renovation addition drawings and about 20 to 30% new construction drawings. And the best way to get in touch with us is our website, coastalcreekdesign.com. There's a phone number you can call from there and an information thing you can fill out, and we'll get back in touch with you.
Perfect. And of course, folks, for those of you that have listened to the show, you probably have the contact info saved in your phone, right? That's the goal. But no, the website to contact me is listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. A lot of great info on there. We just added some really cool AI-based stuff to it. So always evolving on that site. And then, of course, if you want to reach out to me by phone or text, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065. So I think some of the questions that folks have had this year are things like, how did prices go up even though demand seemed to go down? How did prices go up even though inventory seems to have improved? What's going to happen next year? Why didn't rates come down? Are rates going to come down? Can I afford to renovate my house right now, or are labor and material costs still just so incredibly high that you really have to be doing quite well for yourself to afford to do something to your home. And so you've got all these questions and these lingering thoughts, and I think in the back of people's minds that are frankly creating uncertainty, right? And consumer confidence has gone down in the market. I think we had a nice little bump when we knew that the red wave is going to hopefully improve the economy, which all signs point to it being yes.
Right.
But let's just start with from your perspective, how would you measure this year compared to other years in terms of demand?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, before we got on air, we were talking about 2019. So I use 2019 as a marker a lot when I'm talking to my clients as well. So your comment was, I think we had about 6,000 houses on MLS, and we have 4,000 houses on MLS now. What I say to consumers and my clients when I'm talking to them, well, first off, when I go out to a renovation addition job and I walk the house with them, one of the first things I want to do is understand their full scope, and then I'm going to give them a range of what I think the construction price is going to be, because we don't ever want somebody to hire us as designers and then get through the process and be surprised or disappointed when they start getting the bids in. So when I have those discussions with people, I go back and I say, the construction prices in our area are double what they were in 2019. And that's not necessarily, in my mind, it's not the builders getting rich. It's the subs and suppliers that have all increased their prices over the last 5 years. And
that's interesting. I think that folks, and to an extent even me included, without having industry specific knowledge, would think that people are just being opportunistic, right? They're just lining their pockets because they can, because everything's expensive.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you can say that the builder's fee has gone up, certainly, just like everything else. But, I go back down to the framer that used to get paid $20 an hour in 2019. Now he's getting paid $35 or $38 an hour. And that's just the reality of what's happening. I mean, what happens with our crazy rental prices. He may have been able to rent a room for $800 or $1,000 in 2019. Now he's paying $1,600.
Right.
And it just all trickles down. So I think it's really important for people to be realistic about the construction pricing in our region before they start thinking about any kind of renovation or addition project.
Speaking of, just on that topic for a moment, pricing per region, right? To just get things done to your house, renovate it, add an addition, build new. How much, if any, has our unfortunate weather patterns played into that, or is that not a factor?
That's not really a factor. I mean, I think if you looked at the last 10 years in our area, it's been historically low for a number of strong hurricanes or tropical storms that have rolled through our place in Charleston. Most of it over those couple of years were going north of us to Myrtle Beach or whatever. And it doesn't make any sense because our insurance rates continue to skyrocket.
Well, that's part of the reason why I ask, and that's that is one thing that really has been a challenge. A big challenge. I don't want to downplay it. It's been hard for folks to get insurance, and perfect example. Last few weeks ago, we'll just say, I don't want to give too specific of an example here, but let's just say a few weeks ago, a buyer put a home under contract.
Yeah,
working with us, and we go through our checklist of everything they're going to need to do. We give that to them really the first day that we meet them.
Right.
It's not just, hey, hire me and we'll figure it out as we go. It's here's everything that's going to happen. Here's the process, start to finish. Here's your checklist. We'll fill in the dates that are important, but you have a very easy to read, efficient guide for this process. Right. Of course, one of those things is insurance. And for the most part, buyers are like, yeah, we got that taken care of. We'll just use our same guy. Well, then they call us back, a week and a half, 2 weeks later, like, actually, State Farm can't do an insurance policy on this house. And so it's been a big challenge. But I guess the point in my question earlier was, given the fact that we've experienced some unfortunate weather over the past few years, does that then change requirements or material costs or processes, codes, whatever it might be, to account for that? Or has that not really been a thing?
No, there was a big shift in the late 90s around here where basically the code got a lot stricter, and that's when they started requiring hurricane clips on rafters to top plates, and a lot of the basic things that are the most important were really in the 90s where they started implementing those things.
Gotcha. What are some trends that, obviously trends in your business are going to fairly closely mimic trends in mine, just from a housing perspective. What are some things that you experienced this year that you think folks listening should know as it relates to making an addition to your house, renovating, or buying land and building new?
Yeah. Well, I'd say, I've been doing structural engineering around this area for about 20 years. And so I've gotten to know a lot of builders over those 20 years. I probably know 200 builders pretty well. I'd say, 40 or 50 of them I talk pretty regularly to. And, from these guys are ones, I'd say for the most part, higher end custom builders want to do new houses. They don't particularly want to do renovations, additions, because it's harder to do that. And it's tougher to coordinate, and there's a lot more emotion tied into the whole thing. But I think they're coming to grips with the fact that there's really just not opportunities to build new around here anymore, unless it's a tear down in a good area. I think one of the things that's significant about the higher end homes in our area is that for 20 years, anybody could go to Daniel Allen Realty, write a $500,000 check for a lot, and then build whatever they wanted to build on that lot. And that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
They're developing lots in the Clements Ferry area, but not, Daniel Allen was such a great area and just had so much inventory of lots for such a long time. I think people just kind of got used to that. And I think that is driving a lot of the ripple effects of our market right now. So I think people want to live in good areas still. So they're recognizing they can't build new. So they either buy something to do a major renovation addition, or they look at their house and say, we need to try to figure out a way to stay here. How can we do a renovation addition that allows us to stay in the house?
Gotcha. What do you anticipate? I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit here, but do you anticipate next year being very similar to this year, or how are you kind of gearing up for the year ahead? What do you anticipate being, I guess, consumer sentiment and just overall behavior as it relates to your business?
Yeah, I think the people that are moving here, I kind of classify that. Like I have a conversation with all of them that are our customers, and I always ask them what their reason why they're moving here and, what are they going to do. Most of them are really highly successful, smart people that are good folks that have their own business, or they can work remotely or whatever. And I'm talking about the higher end areas now, I guess. But those people are going to continue to move here. And it's because maybe they don't like the politics or whatever the culture is from where they kind of settled in, and they want to come here for a more, things that are aligned with their values. And those people are going to continue to come. The election doesn't change that, because, if there's a high property taxes up there, they're still going to have high property taxes or whatever the issues is that they don't particularly like.
Right.
So I think that those people are going to continue to drive the higher end part of the market and keep those prices high. You could probably comment more about the production stuff, on the other sides of town. But, I think that they're also recognizing that they can't buy a new house necessarily, so they're going to have to find a place, do a major renovation addition. And that's where we've kind of built our business towards being the absolute best option for renovations, additions. Certainly do a lot of new construction drawings also. We love it. But I think, at Coastal Creek Design, we have the combined team of structural and architectural people in the same office, and we can just really figure out better solutions than other firms are able to do.
Optimistic about next year? Concerned about next year? What are your personal feelings and thoughts about heading into next year?
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I'm always an optimistic person, but I also believe that, if I can create a culture of excellence in my company, just like you do, even if there's a downturn in the market, we will still be successful.
Yeah,
because there's always going to be people that have to do a renovation addition or whatever it is. Worst case, I'd hate to have to let somebody go, but if the market turns and we have to let somebody go, it's not the end of the world. But I'm very optimistic about our market, because I feel like we're always going to be insulated from the other. If the downturn in America is a certain percentage, I think our region is always going to be a little bit lower than that, just because it's such an attractive place to move.
Amen to that. Brian, it's been great having you on the show. Share your contact information again with folks that are listening, just in case they want to get some plans together for between now and, maybe the end of the year, just to have a conversation, thinking about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this at the house. Can we at least have an initial chat? What's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah. And I would say, I have a lot of conversations with people that, don't turn into design projects, but I am able to give them really good information about how much things would, based on what they want to do, how much it would cost, and some of the challenges and opportunities that exist with that. But the name of our company is Coastal Creek Design. The best way to get in touch with us is to go onto our website, coastalcreekdesign.com, fill out an information form, or call the number that's on that website, and we'd love to call you back and talk to you about your project.
Awesome. Brian, it's been great having you. Of course, folks that are listening, if you want to reach out to me personally, you know the drill. Listingsincharleston.com is the website, listingsincharleston.com, or you can give me a call or text, 843-800-0065. So I just gave you guys a lot of stats, right? And then we also had a conversation with Brian Wells of Coastal Creek Design with regard to folks that maybe can't make sense out of buying or selling right now. They'd like to stay and remodel, maybe add an addition to their house. What does that look like? So a lot of interesting stuff so far, and it's been, frankly, an interesting year. And I will just say that I enjoy being able to be candid on this program. I think it's important. I think that there are too many agents out there that are pulling punches or saying things that they think people want to hear. So if you listen to the show, you're going to get the truth, okay? You're going to understand what's really happening. And yeah, there's going to be some emotion and opinion involved in it. When won't it be? It's really a show. But at the end of the day, I'm helping you guys to understand what's really happening in this market so that you can navigate it with some certainty, so that you guys understand the opportunities at play. And I think that right now is a very interesting time in our market because we've had 3 months of it's not been a great market. Homes are sitting on the market. More properties are being listed than we kind of anticipated there would be. Negotiability is a little bit more on the properties that are selling. And so the question I think a lot of people have right now, if we're being really honest, is are things going to get better, stay the same, or get worse? Whether you're a buyer or a seller, right? It depends on the perspective. But generally speaking, what direction is our market headed in? How can I use that information to navigate based on my own personal plans and price range and so on and so forth? And so what I'll say is that it's impossible for me to provide a scenario that applies to everybody on this show. Certainly not enough time. So if you're interested in having a conversation about your specific plans, you're thinking about maybe selling your home, but you're not sure when it would be the right time to list the property, we can come up with a solution to that. We can look at the seasonality of the market. We can look at the trends within your specific area and price range. We can look at the comp environment. What's recently sold? Is that helping us or hurting us? What does the competition look like? Are they discounting their prices, or are they staying on the market for longer than they theoretically should be? There's so much at play here that the best answer I can give you is to call me and let's have a conversation about it. My number is 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065. You can call or text that number. It goes straight to me. Or you can check us out online, listingsincharleston.com, listingsincharleston.com. Just remember, we take, this radio show, I video myself while we're doing it. We put it on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, and it's on a podcast for iTunes and Spotify and Google Play, all that great stuff. But I want to continue the conversation now because we've had a good chat so far about really the state of the market, right? From a stat and direction perspective. We've heard from Brian Wells of Coastal Creek Design with regard to what he anticipates for the remodeling, the addition-based portion of the market, the folks that essentially decide to stay, or those that, of course, build new. But now the question is, all right, so if we kind of understand the general landscape right now, as it currently sits, again, next show we're going to talk about what I think is going to happen next year. But, pausing on that and not talking too much about what we think is going to happen next year, let's use the information we have right now to make some decisions. And so I think there's some opportunities in this market that you might want to be aware of. A lot of folks want to time the market perfectly. They don't want to buy and then see prices come down. They don't want to sell and see prices go up. And so it impacts the strategy that folks use depending upon time of year and market trends, right? Right now, we've not had a great 3 months in our market. Properties are sitting on the market longer. And what's interesting is, I have all these conversations on a daily basis because, as a real estate team, we've sold 1,500 properties in Charleston. We do a lot of business. We talk to a lot of folks. I have a lot of agents, employees, and so on and so forth. And then I've just, camaraderie with other agents. But it was interesting. I was talking with one of my friends who does extremely well for himself. And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't buy a house right now. And I said, why is that? He said, well, properties are, sitting on the market for a little longer than I thought they would in this area. I mean, it kind of seems like something's going on with the market. Maybe it's about to shift. Now, it could be, or it could be one of those random windows of opportunity where things are going to kind of get back on track come spring next year. And then you're going to have a lot more competition because that's when all the other buyers are looking. So, I won't go into more details about him and his search, but different people are looking at this market and the opportunity in different ways. I tend to look at it as, we're going to have people moving here no matter what. We're going to have out-of-state influx. We're going to have life event-based sales that are going to occur no matter what the market dynamic is. At the end of the day, though, I think what we have experienced and what we will continue to experience next year is that there is not a financial incentive, quote unquote, to move. I mean, and I say that because you have to understand where we're coming from, right? A few years ago, you could sell your house that had equity, buy a house that had a lower interest rate, and basically put cash in the bank or apply it to a more expensive property, and with interest rates being lower, pay the same or less per month. I mean, it made financial sense to so many people. Then on top of that, you had all these folks that were working remotely that could live anywhere. And they're like, well, why am I going to live in, Timbuktu when I could be, right next to the beach and right next to culture and all these awesome, beautiful people here in Charleston, South Carolina, right? And so we had this massive influx of folks, and it's still, to an extent, is that way. It's not like people are coming here in droves like they were over the past few years. But, out-of-state moves are going to be a big thing probably in perpetuity until this place becomes so saturated nobody wants to be here. And I don't see that happening. So, when you look at kind of the dynamics of this market right now, I anticipate, and this mirrors, national projections, that next year is going to be just fine. It's going to be probably another somewhat sluggish year. We'll see. But I think that as spring rolls around, you're going to have plenty of folks that get back into it, that jump off the fence, that buy, that sell. Competition, of course, is going to increase. I think right now you have folks that could take their home off the market, as an example, or could just hit the pause button on buying a house because, look, it's December. There's a lot going on. The holidays, blah, 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 blah. People that are on the market right now, that are staying on the market right now, they've got a good reason to sell. There's motivation there. And that, I think, is the key word. Because for several years now, this year, last year, not such a great year in comparison, but, you think a few years ago, was there motivation in the market that was different from the motivation we have in this market? Well, yes, to an extent, because, again, the financial gain associated with the move. But, again, right now, if folks are on the market during a sluggish time where things are sitting longer than they're supposed to be, then that's a good opportunity for you as a buyer. Now, again, if you're one of those sellers that is on the market that you need to sell your house, this is not a want, this is not a dip a toe in the water, and if I can get this astronomical price for my house, then yeah, I'll figure it out, I'll move. That's not really what's going on right now with the folks that are staying on the market, because the market's just not, it's not ripe for that kind of opportunity. It's been a slower past few months. So if I'm a buyer and I'm looking at making a move, I'm probably looking at doing something now, getting it under contract now, and then, playing around with that closing date so that I'm not obviously moving stuff in during, the holidays. And it's so close at this point anyways that that's not really a reality. But I think you've got a good opportunity if you're a buyer right now, because folks have their home on the market. They're sitting. The sellers don't really understand why. A lot of the agents don't even really understand why. And sometimes it's tough to put your finger on it. It's priced well. It should be selling. I'm not sure why it's not. But I think what's obvious is that when we look at some of these numbers, we look at showings per listing, we look at the negotiability as homes are selling for less of their original listing price than they have in years past. on one hand, you've got the opportunity for the buyer to, kind of swoop in and, be that here's your contract, but, I'm going to want some good negotiation on it. But you've also got these sellers that everybody seems to be holding firm right now, right? They don't really want to reduce their price. They're just going to wait. Could be a fine strategy, but if you need to sell your house and you've got a bunch of people that are on the market that aren't moving, someone's going to take the first punch. Someone is going to reduce their price, and they're probably going to be the one to sell first. And then it's going to bring down essentially the market for the majority of everybody else. That's why when we talk about timing a market, we're talking about the seasonality of the market. We're talking about the overall specific trends within that area and location, price range, right? And then we're talking about what's on the market right now. What are we competing with? Do we have a window of opportunity to press our luck and ask more for the house? Or are there 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 on the market already that have tried that and failed? And the market's telling us that because they're still on the market. But yet, of course, you'll still have sellers that are like, well, I don't want to leave any money on the table, so let's price it here and then we can come down. You can do that. It's fine. I would say that strategy in and of itself should not be the primary strategy for a seller, especially in a market like this. I think that if you're, generally speaking, the best strategy would be to just price it at what it's worth and then try and get as close to that number as possible, which you can do through effective marketing, through improving the condition of your home. There's a lot that can be done behind the scenes there to save you money rather than just negotiate the purchase agreement and the commission with the listing agent. In fact, we have a guide that I've written that shows you a ton of different ways of spending money to earn money or just to save money in general. I tend to think of it as, how can I help my client earn as much money as possible on the sale with or without spending any of it, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to pay to improve the property. And in most instances, that's not a good idea anyways. But if you want to get your hands on that guide, you want to learn more about kind of how I think through the home sale process. I've put it all down on paper. It's about 50 pages. You can get a free copy of it if you'd like by just texting the word guide to 843-800-0065. Text the word guide to 843-800-0065. I'll reply and I'm going to ask for your email address. If you want to include that, that'd be one step saved. But then I'll send you over the guide. And I appreciate those of you that have reached out and have told me how much you appreciate the information. And thank you for those words of kindness. So we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about really what happened in real estate this year as it relates to not just the national or regional housing market, but what's happened here locally and the impact that's had on this market. The past few months have been not so great for our market. I think it's left a lot of people confused and concerned about the direction of this market. One thing we haven't talked about is rents, right? Because we work with a lot of investors. I'm an investor as well. We have a property management company to help with promoting the cash flow of those investors. And, single family rentals in Charleston, they were rents were up about 6% this year, which was better than the national average. Multifamily, kind of a different story because we added some apartment buildings and some new developments in areas like North Charleston and Somerville and so on and so forth. But, I think for landlords, market remains competitive. Properties are renting quickly. There's not much need right now for a landlord to offer any sort of incentive to a tenant to get them to rent that property because demand is still outpacing supply. And, I think in terms of acquiring an investment property, I do believe that we're going to see more people in distress next year before the economy really gets humming again. I do think that we've got some great positive things in store for not just our local area, but the nation as a whole. It's too tough to anticipate that based on policy change and so on and so forth. It's just too early. But I think we've got a lot of moving targets to keep an eye on next year, whether it be properties that are sitting on the market, how negotiable those properties are, and month supply of inventory. At what pace are we selling the properties that we're putting on the market? If we continue to put more properties on the market and we continue to see those properties sit on the market for longer periods of time, that is going to, of course, balance the scales between the buyer and the seller and create a normal market, maybe even a buyer-based market. I don't necessarily see that happening next year. I think if anything, we might have a normal market, but what we're going to do is we're going to have a really in-depth look at what I think is going to happen next year on next week's show. So that's going to come out in the next week, maybe two. Tough with holidays right here in December, but that's basically the takeaway for the Charleston housing market, as we kind of bring this year to a close. Tight inventory, underlying demand still strong. We've got an incredible amount of folks that are continuing to move to Charleston that's going to insulate us from the dynamics of the rest of the country. I think that for those that are thinking of selling in 2025, the key is preparation. Sellers, make sure that your home is competitively priced and you're working with somebody that really understands the market and how to position your home effectively. And that might mean, by the way, the agent telling you some things that you might not want to hear, some things that you might need to do to your house, some deferred maintenance that is going to cost you more to leave it than it will to fix it before selling it. There's a lot that goes into that, but I think buyers as well, you got to work with an experienced agent that knows how to navigate this kind of market, because if I'm being honest, past few years, buyer agents haven't really been able to do much for their clients because it's been such a seller-driven market. Instead of saying, here's what this home is worth and here's how we're going to beat this seller up and we're going to attack them from this angle and here's the strategy, right? Here's the battle plan. It's, agents have said, well, how much do you want to pay for the house? I know it's listed for this, but there are other people that are interested. How much are you willing to pay for it to own it? Which is horrible, but that was the way it was for a lot of agents, and especially with these buyers that were moving here virtually. So interesting market ahead. We're going to stay on top of it just like we always do right here on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. But if you want to have a conversation with me about your plans for next year, we can start laying some groundwork for that. My number, 843-800-0065, or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. And I'll see you guys next week for at least one more episode of this show before the year end. Thanks for listening. Take care and stay safe.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.